Hello, Craig. Thank you for joining us on another wonderful episode of the Believe You Don't podcast, where we will talk about something important today.
Very, very important.
The most importantest thing ever. Another review of a game. Today we're going to do the review of Final Fantasy XVI, which is a PS5 exclusive. So, the only person in our normal setting that has PS5 is Jordan. So, he will be reviewing it with me today. How you doing?
Doing all right. I will go ahead and say it. I assume you were going to put something in the beginning, but extraordinarily heavy spoiler warning, because there's no way I'm going to be able to hold back. So I don't think we're going to split the video into or split the review into half spoilers, half not spoilers. It's just spoilers the whole time. So for anybody who hasn't played, and if you plan on playing, don't listen. Stop here, please. Because you don't want this game spoiled for you. Trust me.
This is your first and probably only warning, really, just because I'm definitely not going to be splitting it up. But yeah, this game came out almost 2 weeks ago for the normal people. So, if you haven't had a chance to beat it, obviously we're going to be talking about some story things, some fights, and just some of the things. So if you don't want anything spoiled, please return later.
Yep.
So we'll just go ahead and start it off. This is the 16th mainline game. Well, I guess numbered in the series. There was Final Fantasy 13, had 3 of them. But this is the first mainline game in 5 years. When did 15 come out?
Good question.
17, I think. 16 or 17?
16. 2016.
Oh, damn. So almost 6 years ago. 7 years ago. That's.
I think this game has been in development for 8 years. I think I read that somewhere.
Jesus. Kind of. Well, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at when the releases, because 10 released at freaking 2000. So
it's crazy to think about.
Yeah. But obviously we've had 2 MMOs in between that, so I'm sure majority of that, got pushed and stuff. So so we got a list, and I probably won't include it in the description or anything, just because it's a Google. Well, can I do that with a Google Doc?
You'd have to have people request access or make it not unlisted or private or whatever.
Maybe I'll just do some kind of Word document and paste it, everything we kind of talked about. But,
yeah, you can do that.
So we'll start off with our initial thoughts of the game, and we'll try. Like I said, we have a document that we're going to try to stick to, and just a few things at the beginning. So I'll just go ahead and say my initial thoughts, and then I'll let you ramble, because I know you're definitely a more scriptive person than I am. So we've been waiting for this game, like we said, for 7 years, really. In between, we've had 7 Remake, and that's fulfilled most of us if you got to play it and stuff. But just a new mainline game, it's something that we've been waiting for, because for me, 15, it was an okay Final Fantasy game, but it was just something, there was little hints that could have made the game so much better, and I think that they took the things from 15, that's where really, when we get into the combat, they took 15, that was the start of it, and 7 Remake and shit like that, so that was the biggest gripe I had with, or one of the biggest gripes with 15 was the combat. It was the starting of the action type, and then the story. But for this game, ever since it's been talked about on all the game shows and expos and shit, I've tried to keep up with it, watched every single trailer, and it just every single one made me get more hype after the last one. It's just, and I'll just go ahead and say it is absolutely lived up to what I look for in a Final Fantasy game. And I am even after beating it, am still playing it as of right now. So yeah, it's absolutely lived up. It's not a perfect game, but it's just an absolute gem in my opinion. So I'll let you get your initial thoughts on it.
More or less agree with everything you said. When they first announced this game forever ago, I was intrigued, but not like 100% sold. The main thing that had me excited about it was the fact that the music for the game was being made by the same guy who does the music for Final Fantasy XIV, and that game is full of bangers. And so that was the main thing that had me going. I was mainly excited to hear new music from him. But as we got more information about the game, they started talking about the combat, and then I learned that the combat was directed by the same guy who did DMC5, which I haven't played DMC5, but anytime people talk about Devil May Cry 5, the combat is like always S+ tier. Everyone says the combat in Devil May Cry 5 is out of this world amazing. So as I learned more and more about the game, I got more and more excited. And then like as the months were flying by and we were getting closer to release, it only built up more. And just when I finally got to play it, man, the game blew me the hell away. Obviously, it's got its flaws, which we've got a point to discuss about it later on. But I think it's important to note that even a game with flaws can still be considered like an absolute like paragon of game releases. And I think this one is going to stand among the greats of not just the Final Fantasy series, but I think the greats of games as a whole. I'm not 100% sold on that yet, if it's going to make it into like my personal top 5 yet, because I'm letting my recency bias fall off, because obviously right now it's like, the best fucking thing ever. But once my recency bias falls off and then I can be a little bit more critical about my thinking, then we'll see where it lands. Regardless, it's going to be in like it's one of my favorite games ever for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yes. It definitely is up there for PS5 games right now. I know we don't have a big, selection to choose from, but just like you said, it has its little things that could be wrong, but certain points are so high that it almost gives it an extra bump in just like how you can truly judge it. So yeah. So the first real point that we got is talking about side quests, hunts, and the whole world building. So we'll start with side quests. I'm gonna go ahead and say this game, and I've never like actually looked up how many side quests are in, and mainly in RPG if you're playing those, because mostly RPGs are gonna have side quests. Like I'm sure DMC and shit like that, they don't have it. But I've never looked up how many side quests are in a game until this game, and come to find out, there is 76 side quests.
And most of them pop up at the fucking end.
Yes, and I did my best to try and you would do I would say most of the game is linear, but it doesn't feel very linear to me because you can go wherever you want to. It's just you don't explore the open world as much as some other Final Fantasy games, but I think it did a much better job than 15, because 15 you were just in the open world versus you had your little points, but you could whenever you wanted to, you could just go into the open world unless it blocked it off for a main storyline quest. Yeah. So, but basically every time a side quest popped up, it was usually like 2 to 3. And I would do my best to do them and then go off and focus on the main story. So I thought that was fine, because it built the world around you, really, and you got to be introduced to some fun characters. Some of the side quests are just your typical ones where you go, hey, oh, Bobby's attacking me, let me go kill him, or Jimmy is stealing something, go kill him, or retrieve shit. But some of them are actually pretty in depth, and some of them were dark as shit.
Yep, sure.
So, did you complete all of them before your second, or if you've started your second run, or do you remember?
I've only gotten into the very beginning of the second run, but I did all the side quests in my first run of the game. So,
okay. Do you know if they got blocked off at a certain point? You couldn't do them?
I think when you hit the points in the game where it tells you, before you're about to do the story mission, and it pops up and says, "Hey, the events that transpire here might lead to you not being able to come back or whatever." I think that's when any side quest that you haven't done will be cut off. As for other ones, it's a good question. I did them as they popped up. I think the only time that I didn't do them right when they popped up is if I was in a really intense part of the story and I was I can't do these right now. I need to see what happens next. But I never ran into a situation where I lost any of the side quests. So I'm want to assume that the only time you'll lose them is when the game tells you physically, hey, when you do this next story mission, you might lose access to parts of the world, or some stuff might change. Whatever the message was, something along those lines. So, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. I'm pretty positive I completed them all, because when you go and scroll on that list, holy shit, is it long.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, like you said, for whatever reason, when you get into the real end game, or not the later part of the game, it 5 to 7 pop up. And I think the only time I bet I missed out was when you actually first, or the second place you get them at. What is it? Not East. What's the first main town you get to after you get to the hideaway? Is it in Rosaria?
You talking about where you meet the dame that you're talking about? Or no, before that?
Before that one. I'm trying to. It's in the upper left-hand side.
I know which place you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
Martha's Rest, I think. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think Martha's Rest. I think I did a few, and then I was just like, damn, they just keep popping up.
Yeah.
I just want to continue. So I may have missed just a few. I'd have to go back because I have 2 save files or whatever. I may have to go back and look at my original one and just to count them. But I'm pretty positive I did all of them. I wonder if there is a trophy for doing all the side quests. I haven't looked through majority of the trophies, but so, and it did get annoying to do some of the side quests, but I don't know what was in me just to do them. And I mean, obviously, I'm a type of person in a open-ish world to go and explore everything, and I hate seeing things on my screen in my menus. If it's highlighted, I gotta hover over it and it's gotta be gone.
Yep.
So I don't know if it was just something in my mind, like, hey, I see this freaking green exclamation point. I gotta go do that, bitch. Or it's gonna just sit here and annoy me. Or if it was actually intriguing. But like some of them actually were intriguing to me to do,
Yeah,
especially the later ones.
there were quite a few side quests that were really good. There were some that were just kind of there as I don't want to say time wasters, but ones that just kind of, you know, maybe just be like really, really small incremental stories that don't really like mean too much in the grand scheme of things. But I think it's good to have those for pacing, but I can understand why people would just prefer to, you know, have like less side quests, but more of the ones that were like the dark side quest or the really good like ones that added to the story or something like that. I can totally see the reason for, you know, for that as a complaint. But I personally enjoyed most of them. Like I said, there's some that weren't the best, but I'm happy I did them for sure because some of those side quests, dude, like added like a lot, like extra context. I mean, there's one of them that even has to do with the ending of the game, which we'll talk about later. So, you know,
Yeah. Um they were pretty good. I did you ever find that one I was talking to you about that was named Cock and Balls?
yes, I did. Yeah.
I saw that and I'm like, what? Did I really just do a side quest named Cock and Balls?
Well, the localization lead for 14 worked on this game as well. His name is Koji, and he loves puns. It's like his favorite thing in the world. That's why there's a lot of them in the trophy names. They're in the side quest names. It was the same thing in 14. So it's just that's just who he is.
Yeah. I mean I can obviously a good pun is always great. As long as it's not like, you know, over the top type and stuff. So um anything you want to other say about any of the other side quests?
uh, that one side quest with that had to do with that little girl trying to find like what you thought was her dog or cat or something, and it turned out to be like one of the branded, and it was just dead because she was exhausting it to make it do magic. Like, bruh,
I
that
was
shit.
like, what?
It was just. It's just one of those. It's just one of those times where you do like you whether you like read something or you see something in a movie or a show or in this case you experience it in a game and you have to kind of like stop and think about it. You're like, did this really just happen? And it's the kind of shit that'll stick with you for like a day or two after. You're like, Jesus Christ. um,
Yeah, that was when it popped up. I'm like, what the freak? I just thought it was a dog too. And just, you know, like, oh man.
my initial thought for it was I had a feeling it was going to be something along the lines of like, oh, it's probably like a branded or something. But at first I thought it might have been a branded who was like disabled in some way, you know, just to make it even worse. But then when they obviously found the branded and then they were dead because, you know, like I said, the little girl was trying to get them to do magic tricks and exhausted their power. And obviously the curse of the branded, when they do their magic enough, they turn to stone and it kills them. So yeah, dark, twisted, and fucked up. Thank you, devs. That'll be in my head for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give it to anybody who's worked on any of the Final Fantasy games. For whatever reason, there's just so many actually thought-provoking ideas in their game that you wouldn't exactly expect, because I mean, it is continuation of numbers of Final Fantasy, but like each story is different, really, but they kind of almost have the same moral type principle thing that they put in there, because there's like some really big moral things in this game, and that was one of them. There was some slavery type underlying things in this one as well. So, if you'd have to almost kind of be paying attention to the dialogue, and if you're skipping some of the cutscenes, you might not get it. But because I was listening to a podcast review about this game as well, and they were talking about, I'm like, holy shit. Now thinking about it, it did show up kind of that, and it's not that I overlooked it or just tried to look past it. It's just maybe in that moment I wasn't thinking about it. So, so the next thing is the hunts. I don't remember when hunts really started in the Final Fantasy mainline games.
12, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think, because I don't remember what about 10 too? Not 10-2, but 10. Because they had the monster. You would go hunt monsters and collect them and bring them into a monster arena. So I'm not.
It's a similar thing, but I think the hunt board is what started in 12, where you would you basically would take a contract and then you would go out and find the monster and kill it, and then you'd get your reward after.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it was fun as shit in 12. I've yet to beat the hardest one, and if not one of the hardest monsters in all of Final Fantasy games, excluding the MMOs. But Yzmat.
Yeah, it's a super boss in 12, yeah.
Yeah. But these hunts, hella fun. I will admit, I did look up some of them just because I wanted to kill them.
I had to look up one because I could not find the bastard.
Which one? I have a list.
I'm trying to remember which one it was. I don't think it was one of the S ranks. I think I managed to find those. No, it was one of the S ranks because the other ones tell you where they are. I know one that took me a while to find was the Manticore, the one in the desert, because it just says the fucking desert, and I ran around the whole goddamn desert looking for it, and it turns out it's you literally leave the town and go left, and it's right there. So of course, what one did I have to look up? What are the S rank hunts again?
So you got the Tricephalic Terror. That's the one you were talking about, I think. Pandemonium. Where's the Behemoth King?
That one I found.
Yeah, I did too. I was just trying to do a side quest and I ran in. I'm like, what is that? Is that just a normal one? Then I ran into him his moveset though? Holy shit.
Yeah, the behemoths are kind of nuts.
Yeah, I was not. I usually try and save before every one, and I beat him the first. It wasn't necessarily super hard, but just his moveset was redonkulous. The Rune Reawakened Dragon, dude. That was my first main one that I looked up, and he beat the shit out of me the first time because I was 15 levels below.
Oh yeah,
because he was level 50.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Breaker of Worlds.
Yeah, it might have been the dragon that I had to look up.
The dragon's pretty far. Well, I mean, if you look at a map, if you have it fully open from the Fog of War and shit like that, then you can kind of tell where certain things are gonna be. Typical Final Fantasy. Oh man, this looks like a big ass arena. So, yeah. I think there's only a few of them, a few of the S ranks. Which one was your favorite? You think of?
I just really like all the S rank fights equally. To be honest, they were all just good. I kind of wish there were more of them. I really like the Atlas robot thing.
Y'all, the Breaker of the Worlds, yeah.
Yeah,
It was fun.
I really like that one. I kind of wish my main thing is that I wish that they had more S rank hunts available at like earlier because I wanted to
Yeah.
try to challenge them at lower levels. Because the only two that I think that you challenge at a lower level is the Breaker of Worlds and the Dragon.
Yes,
I mean,
think so.
and they were tough. Like the Dragon actually one shot me the first time I fought it because I got hit by its sweeping breath attack. But I managed to beat it. I just had to fucking avoid everything. But yeah, overall, I think I mean, the hunts are cool. The S ranks are obviously the best, and the A ranks are fine, and then the other ones are just just kind of whatever. Just some nice extra bonus content to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they just don't. I mean, for the most part, they kind of add just a little bit more than the normal ones that you would see in the world because, like, there's a Malboro one, the carrot thing.
Yeah.
It added a couple thing. You got another one of Garuda's bitches. That one was difficult at all, but she added a couple things. You had a knight, obviously from like a dragoon. So, yeah, I don't. I wonder why it didn't open up as like C's, B's, A's, and then S's like later on or something, or even. But I guess they're tied to some quests and stuff. They're even tied to some of the side quests, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, some of them are.
So if you're not doing, I wonder, do they all open up at the end if you don't do side quests?
I would imagine not. I imagine like the one side quest where you have to go to that arena or whatever toward the end of the game. Like I imagine that one will not pop up unless you're doing that side quest. So because that monster is physically not in the arena until you progress that side quest. So
yes. Which is kind of cool because it's tied to a whole like an actual story.
Yeah.
So, and if I'm not mistaken, with 12, it was just like you just pick it up and you just go do it. They're not really story based. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of cool about these hunts. So, yeah. So far in New Game Plus, they haven't opened up any quicker, but I am curious to see how difficult some of these are depending on your levels and shit. Because what level are you right now? I know you said you haven't made it too far into the new game, but
I had like 51, I think.
Yeah. So like after you hit 50, it just takes forever to get a level. But luckily, most of the side bosses and main bosses that you fight and kill give you just a shitload of experience. So I'm curious to see where these S rank ones are going to be. If they have a preset level, or they will go off of what your level is. That would be cool, I think. If they go off of your level and then it's like so far up, obviously they won't change depending on how you level. They'll probably stay the same. But whenever you unlock them, maybe it'll be like that, just so you can go keep trying them. Yeah, and then we kind of mentioned already, but the whole world building that kind of just applies to some of the side quests and just opening. I wouldn't really even say opening up some areas because it feels like you can go to any area that you want to. It's just, well, there is that one town, Eastpool, that if you do a couple side quests and stuff, it changes and stuff. So I guess that technically is world building.
There's some areas that are closed off until you do side quests. Not like entire like like sections or anything, but like little small like there's like a town in the desert area that's closed off until you get access to the blacksmith's quests, because that's his hometown where he came from or whatever. It's mainly stuff like that. It doesn't really get too crazy in regards to closing off areas.
Yeah, which is fine by me. So
yeah.
Were you a fan of the world building?
Oh yeah. No, I think that's probably the main sell for the side quests, and more than anything, is just the fact that they just provide you with more information and more context as to what's happening. So,
yeah, I mean that's always a wonderful thing to put into an expansive type RPG. Not just have the main storyline built on it. Like you could not do side quests and stuff like that and still be, really, you could kind of piece things together, but it is nice to have a side quest that'll like truly fit that puzzle piece and be like, holy shit, this is what maybe has been going on over here and stuff. So we'll move on to the fights, and we won't talk about our favorite fight yet because that's down the line. But I looked it up. There is 35 main story bosses.
It's a good amount of bosses.
Yes. So we feel like that was a pretty good just amount overall. And it feels like there was some kind of formula to it going into each major city before you fight the icons and type stuff. It was like, go through some normal waves, or whatever, and then fight maybe a mini boss, and then maybe a step up to a mini boss, kind of like not a side character, but a right hand man type thing person, and then the icon or the big bad was at the end of the main ones. So, or at least that's what it felt like to me. So. And definitely as each main fight kept going on, it kept building and building and building and shit. So that was wonderful.
Especially in one particular area.
Yeah, well. That was just like an ultimate crescendo. So I guess we'll talk about the combat. How did we feel overall about the combat from the beginning? Because, there was, and I'm sure everyone admits this, and I hope people made it past really the first part and kept building on their combat, because there's a lull. But that's the good thing about it, because it keeps building and building, and then even at the end, it builds, and then that's when you truly, get to customize and play around with your shit. So, what's your thoughts?
So I think it takes about. Well, actually, sorry. This is if you played the demo and you get to skip the prologue. I'll just factor it in because so the demo is what an hour and 20 minutes ish.
Yeah, I
so. So it takes roughly 3 hours of gameplay before you get Garuda's abilities, and once you get Garuda's abilities, it's actually kind of crazy how much the combat opens up because of the grip that you get, the Deadly Embrace. Because it adds a lot to your kit. Like, it doesn't seem like it at first, it's just a death grip, but then when you start factoring in, you can do it in the air, you can do it to the big monsters when their stagger meter hits half, you can knock shit away, grip it back to you, there's all kinds of uses for it. And then Garuda's abilities they don't do too much damage, but they do a lot of stagger damage, like a fucking crazy amount of stagger damage, especially when you upgrade them. So I do think they could have maybe tried to find some way to push abilities into your hands a little faster, but I didn't really mind the pacing of it personally. But I do understand that there's probably some people who are like, okay, I like Phoenix's abilities, but give me something else. And then okay, Garuda's abilities are cool, but I want something else. But once you have 3 icons, the one you get after Garuda it's Rama, right?
I think so.
No.
They're Titan,
Uh,
right?
No, it's Ifrit's. You get Ifrit's abilities, don't you? You get the Will of the Wipes and the whatchamacallit. Ignition.
Yeah,
That ability.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure
so.
I think that's how it works. Because then later, and then after that is when you get Titans, I'm pretty sure. No, sorry. I think it's obviously you start with Phoenix, and then Garuda, and then I'm pretty sure it's Ifrit, and then Rama, and then Titan, and then Bahamut? Yes?
So it is Phoenix, Garuda, Ifrit, Ramu, Titan, Bahamut, Odin. Or Shiva, Odin.
Shiva, Odin. Okay. So I think they maybe could have increased the pacing at which you're gaining abilities, but to me, once you have 3 icons and you're kind of cycling through abilities, like that's when the game like seriously starts to like really feel fleshed out. And you still have more icons and more abilities to get. So, and when you get the point when you have 3, you're sort of like so focused on trying to, at least for me, is this is how it worked for me, is I was really focused on trying to see how much damage I could squeeze during stagger windows with the abilities that I had. That by the time I had those abilities figured out, and I was like, okay, this is how I can do the maximum amount of damage or close to it in stagger windows, I would get a new ability. So it's like, oh shit, well now I've got more stuff to try to incorporate into my kit, and then I started making swaps and everything. So the beginning feels slow, and if that's a critique for some people, totally fine. I can totally understand. But I was really like turbo invested in the story, so it didn't really bother me too much. But for some people who maybe don't get it, who weren't as invested into it as quickly, because if you look at the combat at the beginning, I mean, you're really just like mashing square and like, occasionally hitting the 2 Phoenix abilities. And you can incorporate some little mix-ups into it with like the dash you can do by hitting like X and square at the same time, or like
imbuing your sword.
Yeah, like imbuing your sword and like the down thrust. And there's a couple of things you can do to mix it up, but it does not really start to pick up until you have 3 icons for sure.
Yeah.
But saying all that, once the combat really gets going and you've got 3 icons, and then when the pacing of the icons is pretty good from that point on, in my opinion at least, and the abilities start to roll in and you start to incorporate how their stuff works, it's awesome. Like, and they did a really good job of making it's easy to learn and it's easy to play, but what's difficult about the game is getting a high damage in your stagger window, because there's like, depending on what abilities you're using, there's a certain order in which you need to execute things or have good timing on when you see the boss's stagger meter is about to come up, that you need to have stuff going already,
Yeah.
And I'll save that for when we talk about the icons and the abilities. But what I wound up doing for my build personally, I'll save that for that bit. But personally, I thought the combat was a fucking 10 out of 10. There's obviously things that they could have done to improve it and make it better. Like, it's like, no combat system is going to be flawless and perfect. It's just not possible. It's way too much effort and way too much work. But they did a stellar job making everything like feel fucking weighty and awesome, especially Titan's abilities. Like Titan's wind up punch never left my bar. Like once I had that, I had it forever. Executing that Titan punch is one of the most satisfying things in gaming ever. So, and that's just like an example. And there's a lot of abilities that feel that way. But yeah, to me, combat 10 out of 10. They nailed it really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said at the beginning, 15 was just like a taste of what their vision was for their next step for Final Fantasy games, because obviously we've kind of got away from the whole turn-based and stuff. We're in a new age where, you know, we have gnat brains and shit like that. We want to be doing stuff. So I think obviously it changed with 10 and then 12 a little bit, but 15 is where they truly were like, okay, you know, this was our bare bones and stuff, and then they carried it into 7 Remake, and I think they did a phenomenal job. Like you said at the beginning, they brought in the combat director from Devil May Cry, which is a Capcom game, and if you just love slashing shit, Devil May Cry is where it's at. So for him to come over to this game and bring Final Fantasy-ish stuff into it, I think he did a phenomenal job with it. But yeah, I mean, obviously little nitpicks about the beginning. I totally even forgot about the prelude or the demo type thing, because I skipped it on my first actual playthrough. I've skipped it on the New Game Plus. I wasn't even thinking about it, but even with the New Game Plus, it feels so awesome at the beginning of the game to have 3 icons.
Yep.
Abilities.
I only factored it in just in case that there were people who
Yeah.
might be playing the game late, you know, just to keep it in perspective. So
I don't even remember, like, was there an actual fight in, was it Garuda at all in the demo?
Well, I'm talking in the prologue thing that you get to play, not the little bonus combat thing that they tacked on. In that, you got to fight Benedicta and play around with Phoenix, Titan, and Garuda's abilities. But in the prologue, you play as a super young Clive, like in his teens. I think he's 17, 16. I think he might be older, something like that. I don't know how old he is exactly, but you only have Phoenix's abilities in that, and I think like the main thing you fight in that, you fight the Morbol, and then you fight the Imperial Dragoon or whatever, and then obviously you have like the big like Phoenix and Ifrit showdown at the start too, but that's a pretty bare bones icon fight. That's more of a spectacle than anything, but still.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I'm curious to see where we rank like the combat of this game versus, say, a God of War, you know?
It's a tough decision because God of War's combat is pretty damn good.
It is. I guess the one thing, the main difference in this game, there are technical parries, and it's a cool ass parry if you could do it correctly, but it's not like God of War where it's like you could see it coming, you can time it. So this one is all based on you watching the character, the enemy, and you just had to time it. So you either got the option to do a parry perfectly or a dodge, and both of them have their both benefits or whatever. I was 100% a better dodger. Didn't care about attempting to parry. Obviously, it happens because it's like they're almost like tied together somehow. For whatever reason, I'll try to do my dodge, and somehow I swing to do a parry. So I don't know what that was about, but I was definitely a dodger. And the dodging feels perfectly fine to me.
I think what mainly happened with me with parries is a lot of times like enemies would have like flurry attacks or attacks where they like attacked like quite a few times in a small window. And if I happen to be swinging at something, like typically what would happen is I would dodge and then and be mashing square to follow up with an attack, because you get like the precision attack or whatever after you precision dodge or whatever it is. And I think that slows down time a little bit. So my attack would connect with theirs, and then that's typically when I would land most of my parries. I never really went for them. I find the system to be a little too rough sometimes. Like maybe on certain boss fights it wouldn't be that bad. I'm gonna tell you right now, you're not trying to parry like just like the little like trash mobs throughout the game. Fuck that. Like there's no way, dude. I can't fucking see like when guys are coming up from behind me and there's like 18 enemies on the screen. So, but maybe, I mean, I'm sure there's people who are really good at it, but I was not good at parrying. Yeah, I can dodge all day, and then I can parry with the Titan arm, but that's about it.
I never attempted that, bitch. I was just like, I'll just do a dodge. So, okay, so yeah, we're definitely getting an A to this combat system. Please continue this.
Yes,
in 17 or 16-2, whatever you do, just keep it going with this one.
Yep.
So moving on to our favorite character. I mean, we both can simply go ahead and agree it's Cid. So we don't have to talk about this at all. Just kidding. Who you got beside? Let's just both put aside Cid, because Adolphus is just amazing. So
the guy just commanded the room, commanded the screen when he was on it. Just had like such an immensely powerful personality and presence. Cid is the GOAT. Rest in peace. So like very, very upset when he died. But besides Cid, because he's just kind of in a league of his own, my favorite character is Dion. The guy who embodies Bahamut. I honestly liked his character from the start, because he just had a cool, like a calm but like a good leader presence about him, and I always kind of like drift toward those characters. And as his story expanded and you saw what happened with him and him trying to atone for all the bad shit that he does, we'll talk about what happens with that in the story, obviously, but it was just so good. And the guy who did the voice acting for Dion, oh my god, like, I mean, the voice acting for all the characters is amazing, but like, dude, Dion, the guy who did the voice acting for Dion had like some of the best scenes in the fucking game. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, he really did.
But that we can talk about that during like story bits, or have that in another point. But yeah, Dion, absolutely my favorite character. So
yeah. I'm not even sure if there was one that I actually hated, because like even Benedicta, I thought she was good. Yeah. But I definitely got to give them to my boy Torgal.
Oh yeah, best boy. The best boy. We like Torgal.
At
least Torgal survived in the end. God bless.
True. His story too was wonderful. The side quest and shit that you do for him, with him and Clive. Holy shit.
And him turning out to be Fenrir.
Yes, I was like, oh my god. By the way, did he ever turn into a Super Saiyan again? Like he did in the whole Hugo thing?
He does. He does it in the middle of combat. It's just hard to see with all this shit going on.
By the way, do you have him like fully leveled, or how do you fully level him? Do you like have to pet him so many times, or is it just combat experience?
I think it's just combat experience. I
haven't looked lately.
I think he just levels up as the game goes on, to be honest. I don't really think there's an actual system tied to it.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, he's awesome. What he did to Benedicta, and she's getting pissed off with this dog, was just epic. Coming in and saving Clive's ass, like
hitting her with wrestling moves.
Yes. He was like a Sonic the Hedgehog, though, on some of them. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Won't take too much longer on that one, but the whole love story between Clive and Jill. How are we feeling about that, and where would you kind of rank it? And I have what they consider the top 10 list of the romances in Final Fantasy games.
This is the best one.
Oh,
This is the best one. I'm sorry, man. Look, man. Look, before this, it was Titus and Yuna. Okay, for me personally. Even though that one, I guess, has had a tragic ending, but then in 10-2, it's not tragic. He comes back in 10-2, right?
I have no clue. I've never even attempted to play the game, even though I should, because I've actually heard good things about it.
I think people shit on 10-2 because it's just not as good as 10, but I'm pretty sure it's still it's a good game, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. If they fully remake that bitch, I'm playing it.
I'm pretty sure he comes back at the end of 10-2. Sorry to spoil that for you, but whatever.
Almost 30 years old at this point, guys.
But before Clive and Jill, it was Titus and Yuna who had my favorite like romantic story, because the scene in 10 where they're in the that pool thing or whatever, and they kiss.
Are you talking about the awkward laugh? Oh,
no,
the actual CGI.
Yeah, the actual CGI, like really amazing looking cutscene.
Yes, that one's great.
Love that. But this story between Clive and Jill has got to be for me.
I can see that, and the only reason is because in basically everything, maybe Cloud and Tifa, technically, because they grow up together, but Clive and Jill technically do too. It's just they get separated and then they continue to build. So this is a wonderful love story. It definitely didn't have the awkward moments like it did with that whole laughing scene in 10. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. We're not going to repeat it here. So
yeah, but I mean, nothing. It just can't beat Cloud and Tifa, bro. Although I will say, I'm curious about what happens to them in this whole rebirth, different timeline. So we'll see how that goes.
They kill Tifa. I will never forgive Nomura. They kill Tifa. I am suing Nomura. I swear to God.
So yeah, this one was an awesome love story. I'm glad they it was two great characters overall, and then them together was great. So my
only complaint is that it took Clive for fucking ever to kiss
be like,
her.
Hey,
took him for
you like her, mate?
Ever to kiss her, dude.
Yeah, that little side quest too with her was great.
Oh, or the flower scene.
Yes.
Good shit. So, loved it.
All right, well, we're closing in on an hour already. And we're not.
Really?
Yes, we're not even to where we wanted to be.
All right, well.
So yes, let's just focus on that one. So the last, we're definitely gonna have to split this whole review into a couple parts, if not 3, just because we have just so much. We could probably just sit here and talk about things, and it would bring up other things, but we'll try and end it here and then break them up and shit. So the last part we're gonna talk about for this part of the review is the icons. And if you have played any Final Fantasy, they've gone by different entities, I want to say. So you have like icons, or summons, or espers. Basically, it is just I don't really know how to describe them without calling them a summon, because you summon them.
That's what they were first called, right? In Final Fantasy in general.
Summons, yes. No, it was a summons. It had to be summons. But yeah, like 12 was espers, 9 was icons, 7 was.
What was it in 10?
I think they were just called summons. Yeah, because they were just.
I could have sworn they had a special name for them, didn't they? I gotta look it up because it's gonna bug me. Aeons.
Okay, Aeons. Yeah, Aeons.
Yeah.
Maybe they're different in every one.
Then. I think that might be the only time that they were called Aeons.
Or were they? Okay, yeah. But they just all always had maybe either the same type, but essentially it's just extra monsters that these characters have at their control. Essentially,
It's typically element based. They can
yes.
be they're demigods or ultra powerful beings for the most part. Not quite gods, but close to it. So
And we've had pretty much a staple in each Final Fantasy game, and then they branch out to certain ones. So just going over some of the OGs, really, you got and obviously Final Fantasy 16 is truly based off of this one, is Ifrit, or Ifrit, however you
yep.
want to say it. He's essentially like the Hell God or something. Not Hades, but like a fire demon or something. Yep. He always seems to be the initial one that you get in just about every single Final Fantasy game, it feels like. But
I find it interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
I find it interesting how so you're saying that he tends to be like the first summon you get. He also tends to not be like that great of a summon, right?
Yes.
Because he's the first one you get. He tends to be like on the lower end. And even in another game, Final Fantasy 14, in Ifrit in that game, he's one of the first bosses you actually fight in the story. So even in that game, he's just kind of a like it's still cool, like because it's Ifrit. But in 16, Ifrit is fucking badass.
They bring him into a whole new level and like respect for him, and just even honestly in 15 too, he was a pretty big, not a big focus, but he was one of the first ones too, and he was a badass in 15. So, but yeah, this whole focus really obviously on the freaking art, it's Phoenix and Ifrit fighting or whatever. So yeah, this one took it to a whole new level on Ifrit. And one of the best lines in 16 is I am Ifrit, or come to me Ifrit.
Come to me Ifrit.
Yes, like it's just awesome. You got your Shivas, the ice person. Usually Titan is one, Odin and your Bahamut's, and then you in Ramuh. Those are usually your basic ones, and then they branch out. So in 16, we got Ifrit, Shiva, Ramuh, Garuda. I think the only one I can remember her in is 10. She might have been in other ones. Yeah.
Garuda's in 14, I know that. I don't know what game she's in before that.
Yeah, I can only remember 10. But then you got Bahamut, Titan, Phoenix, and Odin. So each one of the main characters has the power of the icons. So Clive is Ifrit. Barnabas, he is Odin. Benedicta is Garuda. Sidolphus, or Sid, is Ramuh. Dion is Bahamut. Hugo is Titan. Joshua is Phoenix. And Jill is Shiva.
Yep.
And basically, each empire is using them to be like their last resort and their big bad, like gonna protect and shit. So, first question is, who was our favorite? You know, I know you've already said Dion, like, was your favorite character, so, but Icon, who has to be your favorite?
It's a tough choice, man, because they all have like their cool things about them. Like Odin, like every time Odin was on screen, it was like chilling. Like you had like this sense in your your spine, like someone might not make it here, because like Odin was obviously, with Barnabas being pretty unpredictable, right? Because he was just a fucking nutcase. Like every time you saw Odin, it was just nerve wracking. Like that scene where you go to to Waloed, and you're in like that abandoned village, and then Gav says, "Oh fuck," and then you're like, oh, "What could Gav be looking at? What could possibly be here that's scary?" And then Clive looks at it, and then Clive's face gets, this terrified look, and you're like, "What could it be?" And then it's just Odin, just sitting up on on a rock, and you're like, like I thought he was going to be at the end. What's he doing here? Like, but then you've got like Bahamut, dude. Bahamut's model, holy shit! I love his model in this game. He looks. I know it's mostly wings, but it doesn't matter. Bahamut is amazing, and I know we're gonna save the discussion for the fights a little bit later. But Bahamut's fight, holy magic on a screen. But we'll save that for another thing. Just I'm trying to mainly focus on the aesthetic and the presence of and like a little bit of the story of the icons. I'm not trying to think too much about their fights. And then you've got Titan, who is just,
I don't even understand. Yeah,
like it's tough for me. I think I have to go with Bahamut just because I just fucking love Bahamut. Bahamut's been like one of my favorites in all the games. I mean, he was my favorite in 10. I think it's only natural that he's probably going to be my favorite in this one too. So
yeah, I mean, it's absolutely hard to beat any Bahamut. Yeah. So, Jill was awesome, but she had some cool ass moments protecting Clive at certain points, like when she was fighting Odin and shit. Didn't we got to see a little bit between her and Hugo as Titan, and I wish we would have got to see more, because I think she could have done some damage to him. So like her, and then even Sid, he busted out some badass moves, but he definitely, like the rest of them, because he wasn't a big bad or anything, he didn't get a shining fight to, show off his true skills and stuff. So like those two, you kind of, Garuda's like whole evolution and her thing was to beginning was cool as shit. Like obviously it's a harpy, and like it was pretty cool, but to me, I've also always been a Bahamut fan, but I've always been an Odin fan. So I have to give it up to Barnabas. He was a wonderful character. Once we get into the fights, it wasn't as much as the icon fight, so that was just slightly disappointing. And I love his model. I've always loved the horse with the 6 feet. It's great. So yeah, I think it has to be Odin for me. And obviously Joshua too. Phoenix is a wonderful model and just icon. He looks like he's truly in control and what he does. Like you were showing me with the thing that they hinted at with 14, the barrier and shit. That was epic. If you're a 14 fan and you've played 16, you know what we're talking about. That is just a good homage to show that Yoshi P, obviously his work that he's done on 14 and he carried it over to 16 and he wanted to show a little bit of that. That's perfectly fine. And I'm sure 14 fans loved that.
Oh, I can assure you they did. They ate that shit up.
Yes. So
I certainly did.
That was epic when you showed that to me. I was like, damn. Just the little things like that. So I think we're gonna end it there, and we'll continue on with the rest of our list. Eventually, we'll try to get these like knocked out and stuff. Maybe we'll go a little bit faster on the next one, and we'll see if we can fit into one. If not, we'll definitely go to a third one. But is there anything right now for everything we've covered so far? You got anything last to say?
I don't think so. Hopefully we can finish the list in the next part.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely try to go a little bit faster. But yeah, thank you for joining us on this one. But like I said, we'll continue. They'll all be separate or whatever. So for now, we're going to go ahead and end it. And see you on the next one. Remember, you can continue to believe us.
If you don't.
If you do not. Yeah, sometimes it is. But thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.